We drove in silence all the way to the courtroom. You walk in and you have to do the security checkpoint. They're also doing criminal cases, so you've got people like in handcuffs, there's attorneys everywhere, and then there's just little old me, and I'm just looking around and I don't really know why I'm here. So then we get on the elevator and we go upstairs and there's all these people. You've got the bailiff telling everybody they need to be quiet because court is in session. You've got my mom in one corner talking to her attorney. And then, you get into court and you walk in and it's just all these rows of seats. And I'm trying not to cry because it's just a lot. It's a lot to go through.
When you hear the youth talk about what they have gone through, it really pulls at your heart.
For a child coming into the system, whether they're brand new to it or they've been in it a while, it's a very scary system.
Really feel that this caseworker, this judge is there to tear you apart, is there for no benefit at all, but to take you away from your mother or father or whoever that caretaker was. It's almost as if from ad litems to judges to caseworkers in the entire system, that there's a fear to be honest about what's happening.
After the fact that we found out that they decided in court without us that my mother was going to give up her rights, it was hard for us to trust that judge. Even though we didn't know which judge it was just really hard to trust anybody.
Like basically they were telling me that I allowed the situation to happen. And I was angry. I was like, I did not allow this situation to happen. It was very hurtful.
It's extremely emotional. We're dealing with people in crisis. We're dealing with people who have not been safe in their own homes.
Terrified, lost, alone.
There are all these fears looming in their mind, and that's why it's so important for everyone involved in the legal system to come together.
You can never let your guard down in terms of making every improvement possible to do a better job for these youth.
One of my very first child protection cases, it was a case of a little boy who was 2 years old who was being physically abused. And the department wanted that child to come into foster care. And I was convinced, based upon the evidence, that the abuser was a boyfriend that the mother had that was living in the home. And the mother was committed to running him off, which she did. And I returned the child to her. And lo and behold, a few weeks later, the department's back because he's been physically abused again. And this time, the father was in court. He was from Dallas. He was there with his wife, who was pregnant, going to have a baby of her own. They were married. They had a stable home. He wanted his child. And I placed the child with him. And not very many days later, I was coming to work and I was met at the door by the caseworker who told me that the child had been murdered by the stepmother. So I don't like to tell that story, but every person, whether they're a judge or a lawyer or a caseworker, who's worked in this system very long, has a story like that.
The commission was created out of the recognition that the highest levels of the judiciary needed to be engaged and collaborating with the Department of Family and Protective Services if we were going to meaningfully improve outcomes for kids and families in Texas.
One of the most valuable roles that the Children's Commission plays is that they're able to bring together all of the key players at the top level.
Instead of trying to work from the bottom up, we're working from the top down, and we're really getting the direct ear of these people who can say, oh, that's an issue, this is what we should do about it, and I have the power to implement that right now.
And eventually all that trickles through so that everybody can be a little bit more on the same page than if we were all out there in our separate silos trying to do good work, but not doing it in the context of the bigger picture, the bigger whole.
I am convinced that the commission is a very effective way of dealing with broader systemic issues because you have all the key players and stakeholders in the meeting, in the commission.
The work of the commission has really opened up both paths of communication, both at the systemic level in terms of change, but it has also created the environment at the local level.
I have seen some aha moments among our collaborative council members when they see that we really are a commission that gets things done and solves problems, and we don't just talk about it.
It's geared towards problem solving as opposed to being an apologist for the system. Because at first that's what I thought they would do. They'd have an excuse for everything, and it is not that way.
It's an example of how you pull together the right people in a room, address a problem, and come up with real-world solutions.
By empowering all of those voices, better decisions get made.
A judge will decide where the child will live, who the child can see, under what circumstances the child can visit family members, and ultimately a judge will decide whether the child can reunite with the family or, in the worst cases, if the parent's rights will be terminated.
Judicial leadership is what's most important, and I think that's one of the things the Commission advocates, that judges be appropriate judicial leaders, recognize problems, and try to help people devise solutions.
Again, the quality of the judicial decision is only as good as the quality of the information received.
I think the most effective voices for what children need come from the youth themselves.
Ask me what I want, and then if it's not realistic, come up with something that is for me.
These kids feel very powerless when they come into the system, and so anything that can be done to increase their sense of power, that they have some choice and some say over what their future will hold, is the best thing that we can offer them.
By not building those relationships, by not taking the necessary steps for these young people, you're suffocating them and almost ensuring that either themselves or their children will be back into the system in some form.
You don't take care of the kids, they're going to be the people out there you're scared of. You take care of them and they're going to be the people out there that take care of you.
These are the children that are going to become adults. These are the children that are going to be in our workforce. These are the children that go into our streets and share our communities and be in our neighborhoods and our churches. And if we don't intervene now in this very critical time in their lives, they'll only come into adults with these problems unresolved, with these issues unresolved, and perhaps continue the cycle of abuse and neglect.
Throughout time, we focused on lawyers for kids, and everybody wants to represent the child. And what I tell new lawyers is that if you want to help children, the best thing you can do for them is to represent their parent.
Many of these parents were in the child welfare system as children. Many of these parents aged out of this child welfare system. Parents in these cases cannot be the total sum of their worst act. Some of the parents need education, some of the parents need support, some of the parents need guidance, and some of them just need to have a layer of legal protection so that they can be raised up and meet the challenges of safely protecting their children.
The first thing they asked me was, when can we go home with you? All I could tell them was, I'm working on it. Daddy's got someone who's helping me out.
Almost every single child wants to go home, almost without exception. However chaotic or abusive it's been, they want to go home. And when you can fix those problems, help families overcome those challenges, and a child can go home and be safe, and that joy in the courtroom when they fly into their parents' arms, that's a wonderful moment.
I'm happy I got my family back.
It's always difficult to grow up in foster care, but even there, it's a wonderful moment when you get that high school graduation, or even better, when you hear that they've gone on to college. And that happens too. It's wonderful moments when you have an adoption and a child has a new family that they can be safe and grow up in.
It really opened my eyes to the tremendous needs these courts face, because these cases aren't like other cases. Our court system is based on an adversarial sort of proceeding, and these cases really do require a more multidisciplinary approach in determining whether kids and families can reunite and in helping solve some of the problems that families are facing.
That's really what the Commission is about. It's about instilling that leadership and making the folks in the system take ownership and produce results for children and families.
What's at stake here are the lives of tens of thousands of children.
The children are our future. That is just not a cliche.
Be involved in children's lives, help children have the kind of life we all want for our own children.
I would encourage everybody to figure out how they can get involved, whether it's financially, whether it's through becoming a CASA, whether it's just supporting these efforts to improve the way children and families are treated in court.
It's an investment in the future of Texas. If we don't do it right today, we're going to pay later.
When we succeed, we make a great difference in their lives, and when we fail, these youth will suffer long into adulthood.